Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, from wherever you're joining. You will hear a few more, we've been calling it Las Vegas-style dings in the background as people join us. We have a popular program this morning. I'm Joy Heath-Rush. I'm the CEO of ILTA. I know an awful lot of you have been out there.
Joy, one second. Easier, so we can avoid that extra noise. Joy, just unmute yourself if you don't mind. All right, that should do the trick. Sorry, someone was off mute, and we're running our webinar series next week in a Teams live event to avoid issues like that. But if everyone could stay muted, that'd be appreciated until we jump into Q&A. Joy, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Oh, thank you very much, John. So as I said, I'm Joy Heath-Rush. I'm the CEO of ILTA. In one of my ILTA roles when I was a volunteer, I spent 28 years at the global law firm of Sidley Austin. One of my jobs was to coordinate ILTA activities with Microsoft, so it's nice to be doing some of that role again. But I also, at my law firm, was the person who oversaw all the Microsoft technology. So always these things are near and dear to my heart. But what we're particularly happy about here is that we know that there are issues, particularly around data privacy, the confidentiality of client files, that are absolutely central to the practice of law. And for some time, there's been concern that maybe Microsoft didn't understand that well. And so there are a group of CIOs, and I've been involved as well, that have been working closely with an amazing team at Microsoft to really try to understand what some of the concerns are in the legal community about collaboration technology and cloud technology, those two things in particular. And the outcome of that, through some really evangelical, I would say, efforts on the part of some of the folks within Microsoft, has been the M365 and Teams Deployment Initiative for Legal. And I'm just really proud that ILTA is part of it. You're going to hear a lot more about it today. We have a series of 8 webinars that are coming up beginning February 17th about individual aspects of Teams and M365 for legal. We've got business partners that are involved. Today we've got business partners and ILTA members on the call to talk about the issues at hand. But I just want to really thank the Microsoft team, thank all the folks within the legal community who have been working on this effort in the background. And I think it's fair to say we really feel heard. And that's very important. And one of the things that's most important to highlight is that what you're going to hear about today is not a different version of some software. It's not something that's customized. It's a set of configurable settings. We've been calling them knobs and levers that you can turn and set to address some of the integration issues, some of the privacy issues that you're experiencing. So with no further ado, I'm just really happy to have you all here. I'll turn it over to John and the Microsoft team. John?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joy. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate the role that ILTA's played and Joy has played in helping us really learn, understand, but also continue to iterate on this, because I think what you're going to see and what we're going to talk about today is truly a work in progress. And as Joy said, it's not necessarily a new version of Teams or a new, it's truly just a curated experience in Teams based on configurations. And we have our technical team on that's going to be able to join that. And just with that said, I want to briefly just introduce the greater kind of technical and V team that are going to be on and are going to be engaging in Q&A. And we're going to leave a lot of time, probably about 20 minutes for Q&A, if not even more than that at the end of the call. But means of introduction, my name is John Kefalukas. I am a modern work solution specialist here in Chicago, and I support about 5 or 6 law firms in the Chicagoland area, and have been for the past few years. And really, alongside many others at Microsoft, at first didn't truly understand the issue of client matter data privacy with law firms. And courtesy of some folks who are on this call, CIOs at law firms that I've been supporting, I'm very grateful to have had a chance to just ask questions and to learn, and thank you for the patience in that. And alongside some great individuals in the Midwest area, so Chicago, Minneapolis area, we've really developed a kind of curated vision and journey or deployment plan for Teams that we're going to show you today. So Paul Edlin joins us. I'll pass it to Paul to do a bit of a kickoff here in a second. But we also have Michelle Gilbert, who is a Teams and Office 365 technical specialist. She comes from the legal industry. She worked at a law firm in Minneapolis for many years. Corey Buzzle is an architect at our Minneapolis Microsoft Technology Center who has helped us build the actual demo tenant for this that is specific to the legal industry and requirements needed. And then we also have Rich Lilly from Netrix, who's helped us really make this thing more secure from a security perspective with Microsoft security and compliance. So excited to chat through what that means and what that looks like. But real quick, I'll pass it over to Paul for a bit of a kind of a kickoff about the backstory and how we kind of got to where we're at before we jump right into the solution.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't been on these calls beforehand, some of this may seem like a little bit of retreadedness, but I want to just kind of state kind of in reverberation what John said, that we kind of need to apologize. I feel like we've done you guys a disservice over the last few years. We've kind of ignored the core concerns that you guys have around blind subpoenas, and we keep going back to our happy place, which is to say, but look at all the value that comes with Office 365, and then just berate you with thousands of value propositions of why the cloud is viable, and we appear kind of tone deaf, honestly. So, in an effort, I give John and the others on this team, like Corey, Michelle, Rahul, some of the other folks on the call, Rich, others that, have kind of said, done a little bit of an internal mea culpa, then, kind of looked at the bigger problem statement and said, do we have knobs available to us now that help us solve this problem? And we do have some additional knobs that we have got now in our platform that we didn't have before, that frankly let us start to address some of these concerns. But I think that the biggest thing is that, to take away from today is that we're not here to be right. We're here to get it right, and we're listening. And, so as much as we feel like we've got a path here that helps, we're not done, and we need your feedback. And I will say, through some of the calls that we've had with some of the, law firms that are on this call and others, that, you guys have provided us with really great feedback. We take that, we roll it up, we have the product team's ear, and we're we're collectively listening and internalizing, and we're serious. This is not slideware. So what you're going to see today is not like an effort of using PowerPoint to divert you and be like, let me see if I can do a bait and switch and then get them into the platform. Like, there are some real implications to what we've developed here. The product, the group, that's here has worked really hard to figure out ways to turn things off in the platform. And so, we're going to show you the entire kind of 4-phase approach. But, if your goal is to keep data out of our cloud, we are working like hell to figure out a way to do that in a way that lets you get work done, use the elements of our cloud that you do want, but redirect data to your, especially your client matter data, to an authorized location like a document management solution, like, pick your vendor, and we'll talk about the vendors that we're working with as well. But, the stated goal is not to just kind of figure out a way to resell you. It's really that we are looking at ways to accept the problem statement, figure out how to address it technically, and then give you guys some a la carte menu items that you can pick and choose from. As we get into these a la carte menu items that you can pick and choose from, the one thing that we have to, make sure that you understand is some of them have dependencies, right? So I think, like, if you choose option 6, it might require option 2, but we need to explain that to you, and we'll try and do some of that today. And with that, I think I'll turn the mic back over to John. We kind of want to, expose you to the program, give you guys some interesting, some information on what might be interesting to you, and then really hear your feedback at the latter half of the call.
Yep, Paul hit the nail on the head. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. So with that said, yeah, you said no marketingware or slideware. Let's jump right to it and kind of explain what we're doing here. And again, I want to be very, very clear. This is not a new M365 for Teams, or for legal Teams version, or new custom deployment of Teams. It is truly just the ability to customize and curate and decide what knobs and levers you want to turn on and turn off in Office 365 and Microsoft 365. And it is about turning things off as much as it's about turning things on. I think gone are the days that we're going to sit here and try to tell you, use SharePoint, don't use your DMS, iManage, NetDocs, eDocs, or the like. So that's kind of what this is all about. So I'll start up at the top here. I know this is an eyesore of a slide, so please bear with me. But at the top, the journey to the cloud for law firms. So this is essentially a prescriptive 4-phase process. It's a crawl, walk, run approach to deploying Microsoft 365 that factors your security risk and, most importantly, client matter data privacy requirements into this deployment. To help drive that transformation, that organizational change, for law firms, and help you maybe consolidate tools into a single platform that that still has that strong value prop, while also kind of recognizing that you have a heterogeneous environment. We need to play and operate within that. So this 4-phased approach is a recommendation. It's a baseline, but it's entirely customizable. And when I say customizable, I mean you can take features and things from phase 3 and move them to phase 2. If you say you want something in security and compliance tools right away, you can start that in phase 1. If you want to skip phase 1 altogether, we have a few law firms we've worked with in Chicago that have skipped phase 1 altogether and gone into phase 2. You can do that as well. So this is just a baseline, but it's kind of a drag and drop a la carte type of thing based on your unique needs. And we recognize that there's a spectrum here. Different law firms have different requirements. Different law firms cover more highly regulated industries than others, so they have to be more conservative in their approach. Some law firms, don't, and can be a little bit more progressive in deploying data in Office 365. We know, there's a law firm in Minneapolis that's, in the G100, I think the 55th, they're top 50, top 60 law firms in the world that's using Exchange Online already. So there's definitely a spectrum here. We recognize that. This is customizable. I want to get that across. So I'll start just with a high level of phase 1. Then Michelle, I'll pass it to you if it's okay to kind of walk through some of the details around phase 1. But phase 1 being the enable phase, really what this is Skype for Business feature parity in a modern Teams platform, while still recognizing your client metadata requirements. And I'll let Michelle speak to the details there, but we want you to be able to leverage the modern Teams mobile app so you can go to the kitchen and get coffee in the middle of a meeting and join your meeting on your phone and FaceTime in the same way you can on your desktop. So your instant messages don't disappear from desktop to mobile, because let's be honest, the Skype for Business mobile app is not great. Or if you're using Jabber, today, whatever solution you're using. But the important thing to note here is we have custom retention policies. So chats get deleted if you'd like, anywhere as low as a day, and that's the lowest we can go, and be clear about that. Or you can obviously set that to be 30 days or 15 days. You can customize or curate that if you'd like. And we recognize that the big thing at the bottom here is OneDrive and SharePoint are still turned off at this point. So, this way there's no document sharing. You're basically just using Teams for unified communication in a secure way. Michelle, do you want to speak to any additional details there?
Yeah, I think you did. You hit them on target, John. I think what's really important about the enablement phase is the lack of disruption, because really Outlook is still your primary communication tool. Personal file storage is still the same. DMS is still the same. Now you're just using a more modern way to have meetings, to chat, to bring in presence. Like you said, grabbing your mobile device, being able to be on the go and have access to a team meeting. And again, feeling pretty secure that their OneDrive and SharePoint is just not enabled at all technically at this point. So no one can go out there. You can't upload a file. You can't share files. You don't really have to be concerned about anything getting out because it's simply just turned off.
Yeah, and then this is a screenshot of what it looks like. Michelle, do you want to kind of give some detail of the screenshot?
Yeah, so what we don't really say in the enablement phase 2 is that to dig into the details, we have 13 user permission policies that can be applied. What you see here is actually using the app setup and permission policy in the Teams admin center to have a curated side rail per persona within the law firm. So if you only want to light up chat and calls and activity on the side rail, you can do that. You also can see up above there that if you have retention policies set, you can go ahead and have that applied, and everyone will be able to see that. Along with that, much like I said, OneDrive and SharePoint is turned off. And so if you do try to, in a chat or in a team, go ahead and hit that paperclip to upload something, you will see that you will not be able to do that.
Awesome. And important to note here, when these messages are deleted due to retention policy, they are deleted within our SLA. So there's they're not stored in a backend server somewhere. Truly, that data in that chat, especially for specific attorneys or lawyers that are covering highly regulated clients, that data is deleted. And the big thing with this is you can customize by user group. So you can allow certain user groups to chat with a different retention policy, or you can allow certain features or permissions for certain user groups that maybe don't cover highly regulated clients, or maybe don't work they work in finance or HR or outside of the legal sector. So there's an opportunity to customize this by user group and by persona and by individual as well, which is important to understand. I'll sneak back here to phase 2, and then I'll let Paul kind of talk to phase 2 here. Give me 1 second. Let me just to not have to.
Yeah, while John is doing that, I mean, I think sometimes we say the words and I don't know that everybody understands what we mean. Some of it is Microsoft nomenclature, but like when we say modern meetings, I mean, really the difference for us between like a Skype experience and a Teams experience is I can be on this call with you on my PC. I can add my phone or my Surface Hub and have it be non-invasively attending, where I can still see things, but it's not like I have multiple microphones. It understands that I can transfer the call to my phone, go downstairs and get coffee, get in the car, drive away. I can come back, get on the PC. That's what we kind of mean by modern meetings, along with the functionality that you see in that Michelle showed. When we get to phase 2, the big building blocks are really twofold. There are others, there are lots of bullets called out here, excuse me, but the building blocks that we actually have that are new knobs that give us the ability to address some of these blind subpoena capabilities are show up in phase 2. One is that OneDrive and SharePoint are on for appropriate audiences, and that's why it's underlined. If you want to, we are not telling you have to. What we're saying is if you decide to enable SharePoint and OneDrive for like your marketing folks, because they're not dealing with client matter data. If that's a use case that makes sense to you, that capability is there. You can selectively add those by role, and we will encourage or by rules enforce data towards your document management system for everything else. Okay, so we're working, like I said, with those ISVs, the software developers, to help build that bridge. But if you want to do that, you can. The other important element is bullet number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the 5th bullet, which is really to say, if something lands in our cloud for some reason, accidentally or on purpose, we can put in rules that will take that content, that client matter data, and wrap it with 2 keys. One key is a key that we provide out of our cloud, which does not address the concern of blind subpoena, by the way, but it would be encrypted. And then a second key, which is the double key encryption capability, which would live out of a key that you have in your data center. What happens when that second key is applied is that file becomes a dead block of data to the entire Microsoft platform. In other words, we can't search through it. We can't, when I say we, I mean the platform. Microsoft people don't have access to your data anyways, but like the platform can't search through it. You can't do co-editing. You lose some of the functionality there, but it also means that Microsoft as a provider of your service can't provide that data to a blind subpoena, through a blind subpoena to a government entity in the United States, right? So that's an important building block for us. And the rules by which we encrypt that are defined by you. And we have some help. We have some kind of well-treaded ways to help with that process. So we can walk through that and how it works, and we will today if you guys care in the Q&A. But those are the important building blocks in 2. All of the other things are just enabled. And also, I guess the other important building block is a DMS agnostic approach into Teams, where we are starting to enable some of those document management service providers into Teams so that they show up as repositories in our platform. With that, I'll turn it back over to John.
Yeah, well said. The one last thing I want to also speak to is bullet point number 3, which is our new Unified Dlp platform. So, CISOs and CIOs have been asking for it for a while. It's basically saying you guys own the kernel in Windows 10. You own Windows 10. can you please build in DLP into Windows 10? You know, so we don't have to keep kind of getting additional agents or tools that sit on the kernel level. And we did. So we launched our endpoint DLP solution in November, and what we now call Unified DLP, which is really 3 unique DLP solutions. One is endpoint DLP, which allows you to do things like if someone plugs in a thumb drive and tries offloading data, you can block that or understand that, or create alerts. So that's at the endpoint level. Then there's communications DLP, which is really important. As far as I know, I think we're the only tool that has DLP built into Teams, so you can actually block people from sending things that they should not be sending in Teams. So that's what is going to, I think, and what we've heard from a few GCs we've heard from or talked to, get your GC more comfortable with the risk associated with moving your data to the cloud in phase 2, is having policies and controls in place that say, if I start talking about this highly confidential client or topic matter in Teams, that chat will be blocked. And that extends not just in Teams, but to the rest of Office 365, into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but also SharePoint, OneDrive. So you can quite literally block or prevent sensitive data from being shared in your entire Office 365 environment. So that's the level of control that's making people more comfortable. Granted, we don't want to sit here and lie or say that there's going to be zero risk of secret subpoena, but I think that the risk benefit analysis or the risk analysis that's being made is making privacy officers or risk folks more comfortable with the move, because there's this granular level of control. And then the last DLP solution in Unified DLP is what we call Cloud DLP, which is basically a combination of MCAS, or Cloud Access Security Broker, and additional functionality that basically allows you to block data from being sent or stored to personal or to SaaS applications like G Suite or Box or Dropbox, and you can prevent that access and understand who's accessing that. And we have a new tool called Insider Risk Management that assigns a risk score to users based on all 3 of those things and other things of what they're doing with their data, with sensitive data. That's all kind of included in this phase 2 section here. I wanted to make sure to talk about that. Paul, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think it's, every one of these is an option, but the reason why I went through the bullets that I went through is we put real work, all of that stuff that John just talked about, that's just stock capabilities of our platform, right? Where some of the heavier work is being done is the bullets that I called out. So not to disparage any other bullets here, but there is the core capabilities of our platform, which John outlined, and then there are some specific work that we did in those areas that I outlined to specifically address some other concerns that law firms has, right? So every bullet is valid in this thing. I think it's just that I want you to understand where there was actual work done to address some of the specific issues versus just core capabilities of the platform.
Yep, well said. Yeah, here's a screenshot of what that looks like. And you can, with MCAS, Microsoft Cloud App Security, you can kind of customize this to basically redirect people when they try to upload data into the Files tab with DLP policies that are in place. You can, and those DLP policies, by the way, are extended through.
I joined another meeting, and it was the speaker from that. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know, someone I met. Hello? Someone might not be muted. I was just saying, customizing the policy, and then also those policies are based on 2 things. One, text-based policies, so a client matter data name, or trainable classifiers. So you can leverage Microsoft's kind of machine learning model and feed trainable classifiers in that starts to allow the DLP policy to realize, hey, this sounds like client metadata with things like meta tagging of data, which also ties into Microsoft information protection, the ability to label a document with sensitivity labels automatically, confidential, highly confidential. So if it leaves your organization, it's encrypted in transit, it's encrypted at rest, and only the people that have access to it can access it. So that's just a quick screenshot of what that looks like. I'll quickly go back here. I'll do it the old-fashioned way. Sorry for the eyesore here. Before we jump into questions, phase 3, phase 4, we're not going to spend a ton of time here because really phase 1 and phase 2 are the important phases, right, in getting you started. But this is really the transformational phase, if you will, starting to allow federation with select partners, clients for external chat capabilities, allowing them to come into your team's environment in a way that is secure, external guest access, Power BI data visualization. Can you leverage Power BI built into Teams? Office 365 app integration, things like Microsoft Whiteboard for digital collaboration in meetings so people can collaborate, while they're from home. Obviously, COVID enabled a lot of that. And then the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate, for enhanced workflows. Power Automate used to be called Flow, so you can kind of connect data workflows there. Plus PSTN calling, telephony. That's a big note I would say about phase 3 is the topic of unified communications. So we've kind of formed a partnership, competition, if you will, with Cisco that allows you to use your existing Cisco Cube or whatever SBCs you're using on-prem and connect that to Teams, so your Cisco hardware, and connect that to Teams on the front end from a software perspective. And then also for conferencing, we have cloud video interoperability with a variety of partners like PEXIP and BlueJeans you've probably heard of to connect your existing hardware solutions into Teams for conferencing solutions as well. So that's a big part of phase 3 is kind of starting to use Teams for all up unified communications. The last thing I'll share, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, and then phase 4, chatbots, things like that, some more additional functionality, but we won't go too far down because that's down the line, I think. Last thing I'll share is making sure to leave you with like, okay, this is great, we're interested, this is helpful. What do we do? Because Michelle, John, Paul can't scale to help every law firm in the world or partner that's interested. So here's what we recommend. If you're a Microsoft customer, contact your account team, your account executive or your customer success account manager. Let them know you have, or your MyPeer, your modern work specialist. Let them know you have interest in Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 or the M365 for legal initiative. We've done our best job of training and communicating to every single account team member in the world, but obviously it's still a work in progress. So they may or may not know about this. A lot of them do at this point. But if they have questions, please have them contact m365legal@microsoft.com. And that is kind of an alias that can help direct them in the right way, give them the right training that they need. We created an internal training video so people are aware. That's been working really, really well. We also recommend you engage one of our kind of brief consultants. Right now there's 2 on this list, but we're looking to expand that with our one commercial partner organization. But Netrix, that's Jay Perek at Netrix. They are entirely briefed on this and they can help you because they are subject matter experts, Microsoft Gold partners here. Same thing with Kraft Kennedy. A lot of you already work with Kraft Kennedy or Netrix, but your choice as to who you want to work with. They're both fully briefed on this and they can help with this as well. And then right after that, we recommend you schedule a Microsoft Technology Center briefing. That is not a sales organization. Paul Edlund and Corey Buzzell on this call work in that organization, and they can help you build a prototype of this or can help you with a strategy briefing. Make sure you use one of these kind of 4 to 6 locations that's closest to you. Chicago and Minneapolis are the 2 that are fully briefed and have helped us build this, courtesy of Corey and Paul. And then lastly, just pursue these 2 validations, technical validation, because it's one thing to say that this works, but we want to prove that this works. Can Defender be just as good as CrowdStrike or Carbon Black? We've come a long way from a Gartner perspective and where we're at in the market, and we're continuing to invest, but we don't want to just say that. We want to prove that and show that. And then lastly, business validation. We think and we've seen that there's an opportunity to save a lot of money if you consolidate some of these vendors if you'd like to. So you can prove that with an ROI analysis. Your account executive can help you with licensing needs, etc. I know that was a lot, but I wanted to address that. And I also wanted to address...
John, can I say just a couple things before we go on to the next slide?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so the bringing in of other Microsoft account teams is happening. It's expanding, but I want to point out again that m365legal@microsoft.com is a central point of contact. Also, ILTA is helping connect the V team at Microsoft with key business partners, both ISVs or independent software vendors and consultants, to make sure that the business partners on whom you rely every day are also brought into this conversation. So then this, kind of list will expand and include other kinds. So this afternoon, for example, I have a call with someone at Microsoft about various change management, training, adoption, help desk, service providers. We've connected a bunch of those with Microsoft already, as well as some of our other consultants and ISVs. So this network will grow. And, we'll be working actively with both our business partners and the Microsoft team on making those connections and having a very wide variety of resources available to you.
Yeah, can I just piggyback on that, what Joy, I'm not going to restate anything you said, but there's a reason why we chose these 2 is predominantly because these are deployment partners. So these are enablement for the problem statement that we are addressing with the solution. There are plenty of other good partners out there. We are happy to work with them. We're not trying to king make here. We don't do that, as a matter of fact, with our partners. We are happy to, if you have a deployment, and I want to be really specific, a deployment partner that you work with, please let Joy know, or use the alias to contact us and let us know, and we will kind of help them through this process. But what we're not looking to do initially is work with every single widget provider that makes like a plug into Outlook or a plug into Word, or like somebody who does even training is essentially like those are issues that are kind of downstream from the core problem. Right now we're working with the vendor, the people that we're focusing most heavily on as deployment partners, and we need, the reason for going through that is we need your feedback to tell us which of those partners that are important to you from a deployment perspective. Okay. All the other partners in the ecosystem, great, love them, but this is the concern that we have at the moment, predominantly.
Yeah. And Paul hit the nail on the head. These two partners are not the only partners that could help with this original slide, right? Absolutely. Those are the two partners that we know have a comprehensive offering across teams, security, compliance, Power BI, basically the greater workloads, because this is all encompassing of many workloads and work streams, but by all means not the only partners. Paul hit the nail on the head there. So we absolutely want to ensure that you and make the message clear that any partner can be worked with. I also want to be clear that the Microsoft 365 for Legal V team is a V team because this is essentially a stretch project for us. This is something we're all passionate about. We all cover law firms or come from the legal industry or have backgrounds, and we kind of ideated this vision, but this is not our full-time jobs to be focusing on law firms. We still cover a variety of other customers and other industries. So unfortunately, we can't scale to help every single partner or customer, which is why we really do need to scale through our great partners like Metrics, Kraft Kennedy, and any other partner that can help you with deployment. It's not just those two. Cool. Joy, do you want to maybe facilitate some Q&A based on what you're seeing in the chat just in general?
I absolutely will. And before we do that, you'll see shortly we'll have a list of webinars we're doing on specific aspects of MC365 and Teams. And I wanted to call that to your attention. We have some save the dates for this on the ILTA events website now. We should have the registration links available probably Monday, so you can begin to register for these. And so this will help you with some specific aspects of it. And I'll start going through the chat for some particular Q&A, but always the first question, John, is about licensing. What can I get with my E3? What can I get with my E5? What if I have the compliance? The compliance pack. So let's answer that, and then I'll go through and see and pull the other questions out of the chat to begin with.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I can address that. So what you're looking at here is this is the M365 for Legal deployment vision and slide. And I want to be very clear and straightforward and transparent about licensing so everyone's fully aware and has clarity here. So phase one, what you see on the far left here, to enable the Teams modern mobile app, to enable Teams in general, that requires Microsoft 365 E3. And again, I want to just also clarify, when I say Microsoft 365 E3 with a big M, not Office 365 E3, the difference there is Microsoft 365 is the greater platform that consists of Office 365 E3, Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite E3, so Intune, Azure Active Directory for conditional access to be able to set policies around access to certain things based on location, network, who's accessing. That's going to help you with conditional access. And Azure Information Protection, Plan 1, which is our base level, our manual labeling of documents as confidential, highly confidential. And then Windows 10 E3, that's the OS. The big reason as to why you need E3 across the board here is because the Teams modern mobile app, which is obviously a crux of Teams, is to enable the ability to work from wherever, whenever, on whatever device you want. In the same way, whether you're in the office or you're at home, you can still work with productivity. And to do that, you need to leverage Intune for mobile application management or mobile device management. Or I think you could also potentially leverage your existing MDM or MAM solution, but there might be some nuances there just as a heads up. Phase two, if you want to enable the security and compliance tools that we talked about, so the Unified Dlp Platform, Endpoint DLP directly into Teams to basically block or disallow people from sharing certain data in Teams to make your GC more comfortable, that requires E5. So this would be Microsoft 365 E5. You could also, depending on what flavor and what tools you're interested in, because as Paul said earlier, this is not one size fits all. You might want to leverage your existing XDR or EDR solution, or you might want to leverage your existing email security solution. So that's customizable, and I'll show you a licensing slide to explain that really quickly. You could potentially use just E5 compliance or just E5 security, which is a different version of that. So I'll switch over here and show you what that looks like and explain the licensing at a high level. This is my favorite slide that gives clarity because you can get a PhD in Microsoft licensing alone, but everything on the left is M365 E3. Everything on the right is Microsoft 365 E5. And now we've broken it into pillars to make it more obvious and make it a little bit easier. So E5 security are all of our security, threat protection, identity and access management tools, such as Defender for Endpoints, Office 365 email security. Defender for Endpoints is our XDR solution. Defender for Identity is a UEBA at the domain controller level, Cloud App Security and Azure AD Premium P2 for risk-based conditional access, and our Privileged Identity Management or PIM solution. E5 Compliance is all of our compliance-related functionality in Microsoft 365, information protection and governance with our Unified DLP offering, insider risk management, and advanced e-discovery, advanced audit to complement your relativity of Kcura investments that you already have. Power BI Pro is also an E5, and then of course audio conferencing, so you can dial into meetings, and phone system if you want to leverage Teams as your cloud PBX, so people can make phone calls from any device, anywhere. You could do that with an E5 as well. So I'll pause there and see if there's any follow-up questions.
I will say I was, even though it's not as related to this, I was happy to find that Teams live events was included in an E3, which means ILTA can use those, and I'm excited about that.
Exactly.
Any other licensing questions before we pull some of the other questions out of the chat? And then we're going to give people a chance to unmute and ask some questions directly.
I would just, I want to kind of explain how you should gamify our system, or how we gamify our system inside of Microsoft. Like, when you see a slide like that with all the licensing capabilities, you might think that we have a strong desire to sell you everything under the sun, even if you have no plans to deploy it. People like John and other people in the company actually get harmed if you don't deploy what you buy. So there's a really strong disposition inside of the Microsoft sellers to not sell you something that you have no intention of using. So my only caveat there is that if you see things that are of particular interest, itemize those, and then go back to your account team and say, these are the things that we have most interested in. And then what they will do is create a licensing vehicle that gets you really close to the pin that you're not overpaying on. But people have kind of, like, because we used to do that, by the way, in Microsoft when we were selling you on-prem software, we try and sell you everything, even if you had no intention of using it. We'd bundle things together and create all kinds of craziness. We try not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And one of the licensing questions that came up in the chat is for smaller organizations. They would like to understand what, if anything, is included in M365 E5 that's not available at all for smaller organizations like under 300 users.
It's a good question. So we have Microsoft 365 Business Standard and Microsoft 365 Business Premium for our small, medium-sized organizations. But even if you're under 300 employees, you could still leverage E5 and you could still buy E5. The way you buy that is just not on an enterprise agreement. It's through something called MPSA, Microsoft Product and Services Agreement, and that can still be transacted for smaller organizations as well. So that should still be possible for you, regardless of your size. If you're like a 1 or 5 or 3 employee kind of mom and pop shop, it's a different scenario. But I'm not entirely familiar with the nuances of licensing there at that low of a level. But if you go online and ask to talk to a sales representative, you can get in touch with our demand response team that could help you and give you that clarity.
Okay. So there are a number of questions in the chat that I'll group together. They all have to do with turning off OneDrive and SharePoint internally versus externally, just certain clients, not certain clients, and what kind of granularity that people have. Is it kind of an all or nothing? Is it all internal, all external? It's a lot of questions kind of around that general issue.
For internal versus external?
Do you guys want to speak to internal versus external?
Yeah, so that's a kind of a rat's nest of a question. So let me just kind of oversimplify it. And then, I would just say, if you want to go crazy deep on this topic, I'm happy to, is that, we have the concept of like there's multiple types of federation within our platform. One is just a federation from an IM perspective. Like in Teams, if your organization allows it, you can instant message to anybody you want who's also federated with you, right? And that's just what we call federation, IM federation. And you can also see their presence in some cases as well. When we get to treating them almost like an extension, like if you want to bring them in and give them permissions to applications, that is an identity federation question, right? And so in that vein, you can be very selective about who you allow to access your elements of your stuff. And there is a licensing implication there, but it's basically every user in your environment can invite up to 5 people for free. So if you've got 1,000 people, you essentially, I think that's still the way it works, John. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it was a 1-to-5 ratio. So if you had 1,000 people, you could have up to 5,000 business-to-business people added at no charge, I believe.
Yeah, it's changed now. It's even more extensive. It's now 50,000 monthly active users that can federate, which I've never seen an organization get past that. So yeah.
So thank you. I can't even keep up with our licensing.
Yeah, just recently changed. Yeah. So yeah, it used to be 5 to 1. So it was like if you had 2,000 employees in your company, 5 times 2,000. So it's expanded quite a little bit.
But in that case, then what you have is people who are legitimately feel like they are a part of your organization extended, right? So think of almost like contractor work. You can, I don't know what that was, but it sounded like a sneeze, so bless you. But if you want to just allow external people in to collaborate on files, that is done through configuration. So that's not a federation problem at all. It's just more of like a process. Do you allow people in externally to collaborate on content? That's a decision that you make, and you can be granular about how you deploy that. Lastly, there is a concept of what legal firms refer to as varines. I think that's the right word, where you have this logical organization of companies that make up a larger entity. I think S&R Denton is one of those. And there is a strategy that we have in place to accommodate for that, where it's almost like, if you're an old school guy like me, it's something similar to Active Directory domains and trusts. But it's referred to as complex organizations, which is something that we're starting to work on. And if you guys want to go into deeper detail on that, that's a whole different ball of wax. But the platform capabilities are there. And yes, we can be somewhat granular, depending on the discussion.
Domains and trusts is my generation too, Paul, so you're not alone.
Yeah, for us old school geeks, yeah.
A related question, is there a plan for allowing managing external sharing with OneDrive per user? And it looks like there may be something in the chat that just came up to answer that, but it sounds like the answer is yes.
Yeah, Corey, I think you're still on the thread. Can you confirm, or Michelle, if you're alive?
I think Joe answered it, so we could give him the opportunity.
Right. Yeah, give it to Joe.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you. I wasn't paying attention to the chat.
Yeah, hey everyone. Sorry, I put it in the chat. So take a look at that link, Kirk. See if it answers your question. I think it does, but I don't know if there's anything specific you're looking for.
And the team has been doing a great job of answering some of the specific questions in the chat. One I have not seen an answer to is regarding notifications for sharing files. Any MS notification sharing files added to a team, are there plans to make the email address be tenant specific rather than the generic no reply at SharePoint Online or no reply at email teams?
I was digging through this one just because I wasn't sure, but Corey or Michelle, do you know if that's possible to create a vanity domain kind of response? Or Kraft Kennedy, Netrix folks? I mean, I don't know.
I don't believe that can be changed today.
Right.
I can't speak for roadmap.
I think I've heard of design change requests that were submitted for that, but I don't think I've seen any actual changes on the roadmap.
Yeah, you're probably not alone in asking for that, by the way. I forget who that was. So the one thing I would ask is, especially if you have an account person, and it sounds like you're already in SharePoint and OneDrive, which is great. those requests are much more impactful if they come from you. So if you send an email to your account team, they will typically forward that up to our support organization, and that message is a lot more impactful than if your account executive ghostwrites something on your behalf. They believe you, they don't believe the account teams, is essentially what it comes down to. The other thing is, if you go to user voice and upvote the topic, the product folks do watch those. So while it seems somewhat repetitive, please do both. So use the user voice channel for that topic and upvote if there is an existing request, but also send a message to your account team or your support individual if you have one to make sure that you get it on their radar. The volume helps.
I personally have found user voice to be very impactful. So it feels like I see changes coming faster when those are voted high. So
yeah, do a combination. Just beat us up, and we need both.
One question.
I think just sorry, real quick, Joy. So just another point to bring up off of Paul. If you are working with a partner, such as Kraft Kennedy or Netrix, those partners oftentimes are part of like the team's adoption program, the TAP, or the technical adoption program associated with different products. So to certainly use user voice, absolutely. Crowdsourcing this is very helpful. But if you work with a partner, let them know if you're having a pain point there, because they can also potentially leverage it through those channels to see if they can get some change. It's not a promise, but that the more times you bring it up, the better.
I can't overemphasize this. The volume is what matters. Yeah. So the more volume you provide, the more likely it is to get prioritized. Our developers have bright, shiny object syndrome. They think they know what they need to do, but your voice matters.
One question that has come up in every single one of these briefings we've done, so I'm not surprised to see it again, has to do with deletion period. So you've set deletion to happen. It doesn't happen as fast as people would like. As I know, Paul Smiling says come up in every single call. So, Paul, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah. So we ratcheted down. We've had. So this is one where. We hear you, and we've gone to bat. Michelle and I have sat on a call with a guy named Mark from the product team this week and last. Saying this is a thing, and we need to solve for it. There is some notion out there in the ether of something called ephemeral chat that the product team has been batting around for a while, which means that as soon as you close the message goes away. We need your volume once again to help justify that cause. So I don't know if we have Michelle, I don't even know if there is a user voice for that capability, but if there is, we should probably just create a link for it and have you guys upvote it right now.
Right. Maybe we create it ourselves, Paul, and then we just go ahead and put that link in. If you want it, go vote.
Yeah, please go vote. Vote early, vote often. Send it to your mom. Have your mom vote. Have your distant relatives vote. Please do that. I mean, it helps us.
The spirit of transparency on that topic as well, just what we're hearing and just conversations internally. The hard part with that in Teams is the concept of Teams is just different than Skype for Business or Jabber or traditional IM because of persistent chat, right? It's a double-edged sword, right? It's a benefit that you can go back to your chat and see what type of engagements you've had. You can go to the Files tab and see what files have I ever shared to this person in the history of time, instead of having to go to Outlook and dig that up in Outlook. It's a lot more modern of a way to do that. But obviously there's a unique requirement in the legal industry that we hear loud and clear. So deleting messages kind of goes against with the vision of how Teams is kind of created, but they also hear that it's an important requirement for many industries, not just law firms. So I think they're aware, and that's why that idea that Paul said is out there right now and being discussed, but we don't know.
And just to pile on, we are also working with the ISVs in this space to help consider ways that they could pull those chats out of Teams and put them into the document management system and treat them as client matter data, right? So we're attacking this on multiple fronts, multiple angles, based on requirements from you all.
Yep.
But that's the idea. So, one was we're chasing with the product team, need your voting. The other ones we're chasing with the ISVs, validate with them about the capability. Yeah. But otherwise, the minimum for us today is 24 hours.
And on that note, too, Paul brought up a great point. This isn't just like a great marketing slide or sales pitch. Go do this, go buy E5. We have been working directly with the ISVs, bringing them to the MTC, the Microsoft Technology Center, for workshops, hackathons, exposing our APIs with them, and we're building alongside them to make sure, when we say ISVs, we mean like the iManages, the NetDocs of the world, just to make sure that we can best support that solution, because we recognize how important they are in the ecosystem. So that'll continue to happen, and Joy's been a great connector for that.
The last, I think, kind of general purpose question, and then I think we should open it up for people's individual ones, is someone raised the question that, hey, I've already kind of well down the path. I'm partially deployed or completely deployed in teams, and now I want to take advantage of some of this. Am I just a straight up support customer, or can I engage in this kind of in this initiative?
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time, Joy?
Yeah, it's like
laughing at Hugh's comment in the chat about Snapchat for legal. That got me cracking up.
Yeah, that was a bright shiny object for John. I know if it's social media, it's a bright shiny object for John. Is that if I've already deployed teams, but now I want to take advantage of these knobs and levers and everything, is my only recourse kind of to be a support customer, or can I somehow get engaged with this initiative?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can speak to that from like a Microsoft account team perspective. Yes, I mean 100%. Teams, the beauty of Teams, if you will, in Office 365 is once you deploy Exchange to Exchange Online, or if you ever do go that route, it's the last version of Exchange you're ever going to have to deploy, right? Because in general, this is a evergreen, living, breathing thing. So on the same token of that concept, just because you've already deployed Teams does not mean you can't kind of go back and reconfigure and discuss. So same exact thing applies. This slide I shared earlier of engaging your Microsoft account team, letting them know you learned of these new levers that can be pulled. We want to learn more about that. We want to hack. We want to build. You can schedule a Microsoft Technology Center briefing if you're a Microsoft kind of enterprise or commercial customer. You can engage one of these kind of brief consultants or any other partners, and you can absolutely continue to get started. Paul, anything you'd add to that?
No.
Cool.
Okay, then I think what we'll do at this point is we've got 5 minutes left, but in the first 3 of these we had questions, and we all stayed a little extra time, but we want to make sure you get all your questions. Before we turn that over, thanks to the Microsoft team. Remember, we've got this webinar series starting February 17th. Be on the lookout for that. And now, please stay. If you need to leave. If you wish to stay and ask questions, but you can unmute yourself. So unmute yourself and direct a question to the team. And thank you very much for joining us.
And please don't be shy. We really want this to become bulletproof. This is where we get really real and raw and have good discussions when people come off mute. So what questions do y'all have? Or feedback. Any feedback is appreciated as well.
Well, this is Greg Biangino, and I've sort of shot this. It's a more general type of statement / question, but in your phase 2, I mean, DLP and rights management obviously are absolutely required before flipping on any of the sharing or guest access. We've gone through the workshop for rights management. We set up the basic labels, from an IT perspective. How much engagement is required for, going out to the end users, or is this a good place to start? I mean, it seems to, I guess, where I'm landing is it's been difficult for me to stress how important this is in our team's project, which is ongoing right now. Oh no, that's out of scope. I think it's definitely in scope, particularly since we're discussing guest access. And so how long, is this a good place to start, or should we be thinking about, we need to get some, people out there and talking to the attorneys and building labels and, because that could really turn into a huge project, with lots of input.
If I take that at a high level and then
I'm looking high level, and I'm not asking for it. I'm just like typical experience.
Exactly. No, that's a great question. First off, let me just be very clear. I completely agree with you, and I think we completely agree with you that DLP, having DLP enabled and having Microsoft Information Protection enabled is integral before, as you get started, is kind of table stakes as a foundation to this. And the answer from my perspective is what you know is the legacy Azure RMS or DRM solution is completely different than what we're talking about here with the new Microsoft Information Protection Platform that got started. There are 140 out-of-the-box policies that you can set and enable off the bat. So that way, when documents start getting stored in Office 365 Microsoft's cloud, you're getting that process started from the onset, and you're not having to get too bogged down by the custom policies and go back to your attorneys and start labeling documents of the past. You can keep that stuff on-prem for now, but then set this stuff up so as anything new gets uploaded, it's protected. But Paul, I want to let you speak into more detail there.
Yeah, and I've got about 2 minutes before I have to drop too. Yeah, I think that the most, when we talk, so everybody's at a different place, and that's what makes it, so this is very unique to Greg. You're at one spot, somebody else is at a different. So we kind of take these conversations almost with like a lens of how do you see things as opposed to how we see things. But it's much more of a conversation. I agree with everything that has already been said. Like DLP is important, but at the first thing we have to kind of walk you through the thing of what data do you care about? And client matter data is a broad bucket, right? But what data do you care about? Then the second question is, where is it, right? So where are you storing it? And then the third question is like, where do you want it to be? The fourth question is, how do we protect it if it lands in some place that you don't sanction, or even if someplace you do sanction, what do we do? Do we label it? Do we classify it? Do we protect it? Then what happens if it lands in a place that you don't sanction, right? But so understanding that trajectory is very much unique to you, and really it's a conversation. So our partners and the technology centers like me, what we would do is kind of guide you through that process and then show you the levers that you can turn to address your issue. But the capabilities are there. I don't want to overplay
I know
that.
I do know that the capabilities are there. I think, we probably do need to go back and dig back in because, it was the original rights management stuff that we had gone through. Gosh, I think it was in 2019 we did the workshop, set up the stuff.
Greg, it's an entirely new platform. April 2020, we launched an entirely new platform. And there's something called a compliance workshop that Netrix, Kraft Kennedy, or there's also partners like Epic Global. Epic Global is phenomenal here. IntelliSecure is a phenomenal partner on this front. They can take you through a compliance workshop and show you basically the new functionality in the new platform that launched in April. It's much different than I think what you saw.
Can I leverage my Premier proactive credits on some of that maybe? Or,
Premier has. I'm sure Premier has some offerings.
Oh yeah, we try to take advantage of all of that. So
fantastic.
And Greg, this is Joe from Kraft. Can I make 2 comments? One, in addition to Premier, there's also workshops and accelerators that partners can use too. So you can talk to your Microsoft team about that. To answer your question about, I kind of did in the chat, but it's easier to do it via voice. You're exactly right. There is that kind of delicate balance, which I think is something that's unique about legal and corporate legal. There's a delicate balance between IT and the information governance team. And IT can do everything they want to understand technologies, all, as Joy said, the levers and knobs and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it has to be the information governance team that decides how something needs to be protected. IT cannot and should not be expected to be aware of all of the compliance and regulatory requirements that you might be privy to. So it's really about having a small team. I will say from experience, when we've worked with our clients, the larger the team is on the client side, the harder it is to get consensus of what you need to do and how you need to do it. So if it is a smaller information governance team or maybe an advocate of that team that works with IT, trying to get that buy-in to at least say, all right, here's what we need to do. Here's how technology can solve that problem. Here's how we're going to do it internally to our organization. And then once you get that buy-in, then it's just about the user experience. How do you need to do training, making sure adoption.
Exactly. Okay. Good.
Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that was. Thank you.
Yeah, and part of that workshop too, Greg, that he mentioned, it's called an accelerator workshop. Microsoft will fund it. We'll pay for the $5,000 to $10,000 that exists today. So talk to your account team about that. We do highly recommend you invite the risk management and the greater team that would be responsible for helping you create those policies, and they could come along for the ride with you.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. That's good.
And I included some partners in the chat that you could use for that compliance workshop. All the ones I mentioned, Kraft Kennedy, Netrix, but also Epic Global, IntelliSecure, and Lighthouse are really, really deep, knowledgeable about the new Microsoft 365 compliance platform. I see a hand's been raised for a while there. Sorry. Let me see what hand that is. I can get my attendees list up. Oops, I pressed the wrong button. Whoever's hand is raised, feel free to come off mute.
I think it's Dave Schrag. I've seen his hand was up for quite a while, and then Hugh Stafford. So Dave, you want to go first, and then Hugh?
Sure. Just an observation, which is one of the challenges here is in nomenclature, because everything that we're talking about here, the title of today's meeting, the webinars, all of that is the use of Teams, right? But Teams is, as you've shown on this slide, is just a part of the puzzle, right? So we see a lot of questions like, can I use Teams as a DMS? Well, the answer is no, because documents are not stored in Teams, right? Documents are stored in SharePoint and elsewhere. So I don't know how exactly you get around this, but I'll just say going forward, I think it's going to be critical for you folks to think about the language that you use, and maybe to couch this conversation more broadly in terms of Microsoft Cloud Services with Teams as a way of accessing those all under one roof. That being said, the one thing you can't really get under one roof in Teams right now is Outlook, which is where lawyers live. So that's going to be another challenge for you going forward, because as an IT person, I find it difficult to bifurcate these conversations where you've got so much going on in Outlook and then this other stuff going on in Teams. And I'm just hoping that at one point those two will come together.
David, that's great feedback. I appreciate you sharing that, and you're spot on. We completely agree. I think, Joy, let's take that as a follow-up to make sure any of our marketing materials or webinar materials speak to Microsoft 365 for legal, because really Microsoft 365 is the brand and the overarching platform that is all-encompassing of everything David just said and beyond, our security tools, our compliance tools, and the like. Teams has a lot of brand equity and gets lawyers excited, so we have to do a good job being clear and avoiding that trap.
Yep, that makes good sense. And I took an action item for that too, John. The next hand I see raised is Hugh Stafford. And I just have to privately say, I haven't seen Hugh in ages. Hi, Hugh. He's an old friend.
Hey, Joy. Yeah, long time no see, Joy. So I just had a question for John regarding the select partners. You mentioned, we're along with 365 and Teams, but we are also starting to investigate phone system. We have an existing hardware infrastructure, and we wanted, that was a recent investment. How much? A pointed question maybe. How mature is the bridging capability to kind of allow us to leverage Teams to call outside of Teams and outside the firm, and leverage what we already have, which is from another vendor that I won't mention, that name starts with a C.
Yeah, maybe from San Francisco originally. I don't know.
I wouldn't know the geography, but yes, So that's a big question for us. We want to maintain our phone integration. We've had a lot of people experimenting and liking phone calls through Teams for internal people. They want to be able to use it more.
Yeah, it's a great.
We need that. We need that bridge.
Yeah, I'm so glad you bring that up. And Hugh, if you don't mind me asking, where's your law firm based out of?
We're in, DC and Boston are the two main hubs.
Okay, fantastic. Good to know. I know a lot of the DC area law firms and then the UK-based law firms are already down this journey, and so that's great. But with that said, we focus so much on phase 1 and phase 2 as part of this discussion, because a lot of law firms are there in their journey. We want to meet the law firms where they're at. But for law firms like yours, Hugh, this is an absolute important discussion, which is how can we leverage Teams as a all-encompassing unified communications platform? And the answer to that question truly is calling has changed. People in general are used to calling identities. And as much, if not more often than they're used to calling phone numbers nowadays. And I know in the legal industry and law firms, that's obviously not the case. Phone numbers are certainly used, and we're not saying phone numbers are going anywhere. But to more specifically answer your question in terms of Cisco integration with their hardware, we've done a lot on that front to create kind of a co-opetition with Cisco and realize you might have Cisco Cube SBCs that are going to stay on-prem, and you might have an investment in Cisco hardware. From a calling perspective, we need to integrate with Cisco calling through SBCs, which you can do now, either at Cisco Cube or audio codes, SBCs that are on premises. You can integrate with Teams at the front end, continue to use Cisco hardware as the back end. And then also from a conferencing perspective with meeting rooms, there's an integration point leveraging a solution called PEXIP, BlueJeans, and Poly are the three kind of cloud video interoperability glue kind of providers that allow you to bridge the gap. So did that answer your question? Would you like a deeper dive in that?
No, that's fine. I might, if Joy could put you and me in touch sort of separately after, that would be helpful, because we're having some ongoing discussions with others at Microsoft, and I'd just like to kind of square the circle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll do that, Hugh. And also, one of our sessions, I just don't remember the date off the top of my head. One of our sessions in this 8-part webinar series is specifically about voice and integrations with Cisco, Polycom, and Avaya.
Right.
But
we
that's
don't have till March 31st, so we can get you in touch.
Right.
No, great, great.
Right. And
John,
the only other.
The gentleman that actually helped me build this original slide, this vision, actually is a Teams engineer, like level 3, level 4 Teams engineer, comes from the Skype for Business OCS days. So he's very deep in voice. So once you reach out, I'll get you in touch with him, and he could make sure to circle the wagons with the Microsoft account team you're working with.
And I had just one last thing, John, to share with you. Like, I get what you say about identity, but at the same time, I'd say within our firm, we see some people who they want their physical phone, they're used to their physical phone, they still want that. And then I have just had a conversation with another partner who is like, she doesn't know why she has to be tied to a particular area code. She gets it that it doesn't really matter anymore, but she also wants a physical phone as well as, so we have a range of adopters or attitudes regarding physical phones and identity. And we have to try to address various of them. And I am seeing movement within other ILTA firms more towards a cloud and a more software-based approach, but we're all kind of at different places on that journey.
Absolutely, yeah, and I want to be clear as well. The phone system, traditional PSTN phone system capabilities in Teams have been truly focused on, and we recognize that that's the case. That it's not going anywhere. Some people just love the hard plastic to their ear. People still work in the way that they want to work, and the beauty of Teams is it's going to help you work the way that you want to work, regardless if it's a more traditional PSTN way or a more kind of modern software based way. So take a look at the phone system offerings in Teams. We've really invested there a lot to be able to, to make sure we're competing well with Zoom and Cisco and the likes. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with how much phone system capability has been integrated and where we're at from a feature parity perspective with E911 and dynamic calling and routing and things like that. Thank you. Great points. Joy, you're on mute right now.
I don't see any other hands up, but we're happy to. Are there any other, final question or two before we wrap it up?
Or like I said, any feedback as well, positive or constructive, would be appreciated. All right.
Well, hello. I do have a question. This is Lorraine Barjabidi, and I'm from Schulte, Roth and Zabel. With respect to the security and compliance tools, we had recently talked to a vendor within iManage integration, and they were talking about that currently respecting the ACL will work with an allow group but not a deny group, and it looks like that's in the roadmap, but I just wanted to confirm that that's the case.
And I'll ask, are any of my technical folks still on? Paul, I think, had to drop. Corey, Rich, Lily, Joe from Netrix, Kraft Kennedy. I think a couple folks had to drop at the top of the hour there. So if that's something you want to send over to the M365 legal alias, we can get that, make sure to kind of verify or confirm, so you get the source of truth there from what you're hearing from that vendor.
Great.
Apologies, I don't have the answer myself.
Okay. Thanks very much. I'll follow up.
Awesome. Sorry about that. Thank you. Enjoy your mute again. And yeah, the good old COVID mute is what I call it. I know
I'm telling you, and I'm usually not so bad about that. I don't know where my brain is today.
Gets us all.
So thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks to the Microsoft team, the folks from Kraft Kennedy and Netrix, our other business partners who have also joined us today. Be on the lookout for these sessions that start. They'll be weekly beginning February 17th. There's the list again. We should have them available for registration next week. We think that they're going to be very popular, so we hope you'll join us. And in the meantime, we're very excited about this. We hope that this will really help you in the projects you're working on urgently right now. And we look forward to seeing you again soon on another ILTA event. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.